when you start asking yourself these questions, what's the most important decision you made in work? What's the most important decision you've made in your family? What's the most important decision you did for yourself, right? What's the most important decision you make when taking on a conflict? Whenever those things are in alignment, happiness, confidence, success, performance goes up. When they're not,
how do we build that confidence in ourselves when all we hear is that negative feedback, though? And that it's going to happen. We can distance ourselves, but we keep hearing it. How do we then say, okay, I'm not going to listen to this, but it really affects me and it hurts me?
Yes.
How do you then say, all right, I'm going to hear it every day or every week. It's going to come my way no matter what I do. But psychologically, internally, what are the tools or the skills we can acquire to develop that belief?
First thing I always say is you got to take yourself back to any time in your past career or even current career and remind yourself of all the things that you're good at, all the accomplishments.
Celebrate your wins.
Amen. Right. Here's is what, man, I'm a tall, handsome, brown man.
Yeah.
Right. You know what? I'm really good in math. I look good in white dress shirts. Whatever those things are. Remember, Ivan, you were the first person to get your PhD before the age of 30. Whatever those things are. And it's not enough just to tell yourself, you got to write it down. When I took that job as an AD, even when as job as a vice president, self-doubt comes in. There's enough people
I've never done this before.
Yes.
Why should I be in this position?
You only got the job because he's black. You only got the job because you're a woman. Whatever it is, there's all people that are going to be coming at you. And if you're not careful, you'll start to take on those thoughts. And then those thoughts will influence your belief system. And that belief system will then influence your actions. And you'll start messing up. And it's this self-fulfilling prophecy. So stop that thought. Put something down on paper. You'll hear me speak about a self-confidence letter, a letter you write to yourself.
Yeah.
Dear Lewis, congratulations on building your business. You set a goal and you accomplished it. I was whatever it is, right? And it's your personal brag sheet to yourself. When I became an AD, I had to read that probably, I kid you not, 2 weeks straight. And this isn't about ego.
Wow.
This isn't about, you're telling everybody how good you are. No, this is your personal brag sheet. And I equate this to, you remember when you were at a track and field meet and you're a kid, there's some kids that put their medals on and they walk around the track and field, first place. And then there's the person who takes their medal and puts it in their bag. But when they get home at night, they put it on and they're looking in the mirror like, yes. Whatever that is, that's the difference about a self-confidence letter.
Interesting. Self-confidence letter or a letter to yourself. We call this rainy day notes from an exercise that I've been through where it's like, write yourself a letter that when you're going through something challenging, you open it up.
I love
and you
that.
remind yourself of your gift, how much you matter, the contribution you've made in your life, your family, your friends, things like that.
Yeah.
Or you could get a group of friends to write letters to you that you seal and you open up when you need some inspiration or motivation.
I love it. There's a researcher by the name of Sonia Lubomowski, and she speaks about taking a gratitude, taking a letter and writing it to one of your friends, a gratitude letter to your friends, telling them of all the things you appreciate in them and how that builds your happiness and your optimism and your confidence. Not just in the moment, but even when they come back 30 days later, it's even higher than in the moment.
Yeah.
Right. And so those are the things you need to think about is, okay, sometimes we think about just a letter to ourselves, but if you can share that happiness and genuine praise with others, it also boosts your own happiness and optimism.
Why is that? When we express gratitude or appreciation towards others, it increases our happiness.
What they say, the science of it says it releases dopamine, right? And then when dopamine comes in it's the I'll say the endorphin, the happiness chemical. And the more dopamine in there, the better you feel. Unfortunately, as you get older, dopamine gets down in your body.
Really?
Yes. And
just naturally?
Naturally
so you have to
goes down.
Actively build it.
Yeah. You always wonder, why grumpy old man? What is I'm getting to be the grumpy old man.
Really?
I got to get my dopamine up. So you got exercise.
It's a chemical thing where it's like testosterone or something else.
Exactly.
Like, as the older you get, you start losing it.
Yes.
Wow.
I feel it coming on.
You already feel grumpy?
I already am you know what? I'm like, you crazy whippersnipper, man. I got less patience. I feel it's like,
really?
I'll be coming back. Am I Sanford and Son? Is that what's happening?
Wow.
You're not old enough to know even who Red. Are you old enough to know who Red Fox is? Sanford and Son.
Sanford and Son, yes.
Oh, old junk man. Okay, just checking. Yeah.
So you're It's interesting. So this is something you really got to cultivate. I interviewed Dr. Lori Santos on, and she's got the Happiness Lab. She's, I think it's one of the most popular classes at Yale.
Yale, yeah.
And I asked her, I go, what are the, because she was talking about gratitude as one of the key factors of happiness. And I go, you're talking like a self-help personal development person now,
like a guru,
with no science backing anything, just saying be grateful and express gratitude and appreciation. She's like, this science is proving that is true. The more you express gratitude, the happier you'll become. The more you do for others and contribute to others, the happier you become.
The science of, and not only just from feeling good and happiness, but the science also then links that to performance. And don't quote me on the numbers, but it's related to your creativity output, right? I think the same Lou Bermowski, the same study she did, I think you're 19% more productive. Analytic problem solving, you're 29% quicker to solve complex problems. And here's the big one.
When you're what?
When you're happier, when you express gratitude, when you use positive statements of affirmation to yourself. The big one, you increase your revenue by 36% if you use 3 statements of happiness, personal affirmations.
No way.
Sonia Lubomowski, 2006, Harvard study.
Wow. So if you do, how are you going to increase your income?
3 affirmations, 3 positive statements of gratitude, 3 expressions of hope, warmth, joy. That is what showed. Yeah.
Wow. About yourself, about
either yourself or others.
Oh, interesting.
Right?
Now, what if you're saying something about yourself, but you're really lying?
This is
you talk about this too. It's like, is it the science of lying to yourself? How do you say something like, I'm a great individual, when you're like, actually, I haven't been a great individual. I've been bad, treating people bad. I haven't been showing up on time, whatever it is.
Yeah. And so this is an interesting one.
The lying self-talk that hurts you.
It's hard to say because what might be a lie to me may not be a lie to you. I'll tell you a story. I had a guy, his name is Kyle, who made my soccer team, and he believed that he was the greatest guy. I'm like, I'm gonna make this team. That guy showed up and he had like a foot like a donkey, right? And I remember seeing him come onto my team, and I'd just taken over this team at Ryerson. I was like, oh, he's a black guy from Jamaica. He's gonna be fast. I was so happy. I was never so disappointed.
Wow.
Right? And that guy was gonna be an equipment manager.
At best.
Yeah, at best. Fast forward 4 or 5 years, this guy became the captain of my team, an All-Canadian, and the starter on my first ever team that went to the national championships. He had no business believing that he was good enough to make this team. I mean, I coached at this championship, that world championship, Olympic World Cup qualifier. So maybe I'm not the one to judge what is a lie. But I will tell you, if you think you're gonna fly, I'm gonna be $1 billion, I'm gonna be $1 million. I will tell you, it's not the statement that really sets you up. It's the fact that people then start putting into their psychological mindset steps to move them in that direction. Whatever those little steps are, they stop feeling helpless and unable to affect their own destiny and start moving in the right direction. And that's where the impact happens.
That's an interesting thought, because you might look at someone like Jeff Bezos, who's like, I'm going to build $1 trillion company, when he'd never done anything close to it. Well, you might have laughed at him, but even though he was lying to himself in the moment, he didn't have that, but he was setting himself up to create that and to become the person he needed to become, the leader, the man, the human, to develop the skills to potentially do that one day.
Yeah.
Is that right? Or like, Tesla with Elon Musk, or sending rockets out into space and all these different things.
I can't imagine, and I'm going to ask you for my own, let's turn the tables. When you were sitting on your sister's sofa, what were you thinking when it started to germinate? When did the seeds start to germinate?
I started to really think of, I don't have anything right now, and I don't have the skills, the confidence to go do the things I want to do, the big dreams.
Yeah.
And so I said to myself, I'm going to go face all those fears and overcome all those doubts by doing them, by acquiring those skills, so that I can then go out and accomplish my dreams. Because I knew in order to have the dreams come true, I had to overcome a lot of challenges myself.
Did you have the dreams though?
I had a lot of big dreams.
But you weren't articulating them.
I had very specific dreams. Yeah, very
but
specific big
people
dreams.
must have thought you were crazy. Like you were
people
lying.
Thought I was crazy,
like you were sitting, you didn't even have.
My family was like, "Go get a job."
You ain't got 2 shoes to work together, right?
Yeah.
So,
but I believed it. And that's all that matters, really, for me.
Preach.
And I think, And I say this a lot to people, that it doesn't matter if the world believes that and you probably had a lot of great athletes as well, who you were like, you're amazing, you're the best, you can be so great, but they didn't believe it themselves. And it didn't matter if you and every other player thought they were incredible. If they didn't believe it, they were going to be subpar. And the reverse is, it doesn't matter if everyone else is against you or doesn't think that you have the skills. If you believe it, you can make it come true, which I think is unbelievable.
I will tell you there's two factors I've always seen that derail a young athlete or a young professional's career. Number one is their self-doubt, right? Their inability to believe in themselves. And interestingly enough, number two is the people that they have surrounded themselves with that become distractions that take them away from their goals. Over and over and over again. They fall into the wrong crowd, they get with the wrong partner, the wrong
advice.
Yes.
I think of Maurice Claret. I don't know if you know who he is.
Yes.
I'm from Ohio, and so we're the same age. And so when he was a freshman and they won the national championship, and he was like this all-star running back, it was like, this is the chosen one. He's going to do unbelievable things. But then he was surrounding himself with the wrong people who got him into the wrong things and influenced and persuaded him to do bad things and take the wrong steps. And that sent him to jail, and he never got in the NFL. And it was so much talent that could have been.
It was such a shame. I remember that story quite vividly when he declared. Yes,
early.
Didn't the NFL change the rules to make sure that never happened again?
Yeah. And he, and so it goes to show that being around the wrong people could influence you and potentially set you up in the wrong ways. So how do we make sure that we get out of that when we're such social creatures that we don't want to hurt people's feelings, it's hard to go meet new people. You know, this is your comfort zone. These are your boys from the past. Like, they've been with you. How do we get out of that and say, hey guys, like, I'm gonna go do this thing over here instead?
Oh, I wish I could give you the gospel on that, because that is harder to do than what I'm gonna say. But here's where I always believe, and every time I have not done this, I have faltered. We all have that little tiny voice in our head. Whenever I don't listen to that little tiny voice in my head, I falter. And to me, that tiny little voice is, you know, I don't know, I'm gonna now use some voodoo language. You know, you got your head voice and you got your heart voice. And it's hard to, whenever I make a decision purely logically, I always am bitter, right? If I buy the cheap car instead of the one I want, if I do like the practical decision instead of the emotional one, I'm always bitter. And then you got this little heart that's sitting there, that little self-conscious piece that's telling you when you're going south. I don't know if it's your crap detector or your holy smoke detector. There's no science behind this, but any time I don't listen to that voice, when I fall off my values and my principles, I go south. And it's cost me money, it's cost me friendships, it's cost me opportunities.
How do you determine what your values and principles are when you're not sure?
It's a good question. I'm going to walk you through a little exercise.
Yes.
Do we have time for it?
Sure.
All right. I'm going to ask you, and we'll do it together. I call it my purpose exercise. In the last 18 months, what's the most important decision you've made? I'll do mine, right? And we'll share it for 30 seconds. In the last 18 months, you know, I got to be careful with this one, but I've made a decision, right, to take the vice president's job at Dalhousie University. I was the king of my fiefdom. I had all the freedom, all the things I want. And I made a decision to take that job. Boom.
Decision I made was to get into a relationship. Yeah, a new relationship in the last 18 months, yeah.
You got now 7 words, only 7, to tell me why you made that decision. And so I could be nice and fluffy. It was time for a new challenge, 7 words. I could say, I had outgrown the job, right? I was bored, whatever it is, but 7 words.
She made me a better version of myself.
Ooh, nicely done.
I don't know if that was 7, but.
Yeah, that's pretty close. Why her? So for me, why this job, right? People told me I couldn't do it. The one word, and it's got to be a value, the challenge, right? The challenge.
One word?
Yeah.
Why her? Vision.
Right?
5 years ago, I had done a guided visualization of the dream person I wanted to be with.
Yeah.
And she was the image of that. vision.
So now we've just found two values, right? For one of my values is challenge. One of your values is growth, vision, whatever that word is. This, you saw it. And so when you start asking yourself these questions, what's the most important decision you made in work? What's the most important decision you've made in your family? What's the most important decision you did for yourself? Right? What's the most important decision you make when taking on a conflict? Those help, that's the exercise I do.
You could list your values.
To help me find my North Stars.
Interesting.
And whenever those things are in alignment, you'll hear Daniel Pink talks about this, transcendent purpose. Whenever those things are in alignment, happiness, confidence, success, performance goes up. When they're not, sick days go up, disease goes up, conflict arises.
Poor choices, yeah.
Right? And so those are the things you need to think about. Now, that's the exercise I use, but I find it very, very helpful.
Wow. So back to this science of lying. So how do we lie to ourselves in a positive way to set ourselves up for success or accomplishing our dreams? If I've been doubting myself for a long time, and I've got no money, and I've got no skills, and flunked out of college, whatever it is, but I got this big dream and I'm going to do this thing. Like, is that actually realistic to say those things? Or how do I then use that dream and that image on my mind of what I want to create and who I'm going to become? How do I then apply that into life to actually making it come true when it seems so far away?
I love this. So I will say this. Everybody's dreams are lies because they don't exist, right? Everybody's dreams they're just making that up. That's why they're dreams. And so the difference though between people who are successful or not is how they choose to pursue those dreams. So let's just say I had a dream to become an Olympian. I always in my mind picture that dream on the top of a staircase.
Yes.
And I have these series of steps that go down. And every step represents a quantifiable SMART goal that I'm going to put on there. Right? So I've got a dream.
Speaking my language, because I would frame my dreams and goals.
100%. So I'm going to get out of bed every day and exercise for 30 minutes. I'm going to get out of bed.
That's step one.
Exactly.
Wow.
What's step two? I'm going to get out of bed every day, right? And I'm going to find myself a coach. That is from I love what you did. When you went to New York City. Same thing Bruce Jenner did. When he decided he wanted to go to the Olympics, he found out where the best people were that were training for the decathlon. He went to San Diego and he started training with them. Step number 3, I'm going to find the best person in my field and I'm going to be relentless and pursue them and train with them. If that means I got to pick up their shoes, if that means I got to clean their toilet, whatever that is. Wow. And that is, you start putting those steps in there. Now, when you put those steps in, be like, oh, guys, success came. No, they're going to say, no, hell no. Just like they said to you, what are you doing here, gringo? You don't belong here. This is Eastern European handball.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But now you got to say, stop. Don't let that come in. That's where you use the power of affirmations. Stop. We talk in psychology about this thing called centering. Physical actions that you'll see athletes do.
Like a trigger, like a snap of a rubber band.
Stop the negative thought.
A slap in the face, whatever it is, right?
Replace, deep breath in. You got this.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever that is. Whatever it is, because you're going to be on your first step. I didn't get up today. You start again tomorrow.
So you need that mantra or positive affirmation or stopping process and then a mantra, right?
Yes.
So you got to stop and add a positive affirmation.
Make it automatic and recognize that it's a skill. Get your 3. You got this. I work harder than anybody. Nobody outworks me. I can learn everything. Whatever it is, get it ready. And then figure out what your trigger is going to be. Don't mix it all up. Get your trigger. A friend of mine was, when he was trying to quit smoking, he put it all, his hands was always in there because he always jingled coins. Another person, always their keychain, shake. And then it becomes automatic. And that's where you want it to be. I got this. You can't beat me, cigarettes. No, not today. Whatever that might be. But recognize how important it is to ladder up that step. Because if you put that big dream out there, it becomes so overwhelming. Where am I going to start? Oh my gosh. The tiniest step is the one that moves us towards our goal. The tiniest step.
And then do you celebrate after you reach the next step, or how do you?
You've been studying.
I feel like I've studied a lot of sports psychology just through the practice of sports and then reading a lot of books and interviewing a lot of people, but I always love everyone's take on it. So
this is, I think, a mistake that people make is they don't take a moment to make the celebrations. And so they don't ever get to reward it. I just tweeted the other day somebody who graduated from high school, university, and I said, savor the moment. Your person from Yale, she will speak about savoring. That's a big component about happiness. And savoring means live in it, feel it, relish it, embrace it. You know, when sometimes it's cold and you want to just get out in the sun, you're just like, and you just feel it. That's savoring.
Yeah.
Pausing, slowing down, engulfing it. It's almost like when something's happening, like pull yourself out and just watch yourself with your friends and appreciate it.
Society has brainwashed us to believe that love and identifying it takes time. That's a lie. In most situations, when it takes months, you have not fallen in love. You've learned to tolerate them. You've grown attached to them. All right. You've
enjoyed a part of the process. It's giving you
Exactly.
connection. You're not lonely.
Exactly. And when you've invested months, you are more likely to not want to walk away from it because all the time and energy you put in. So now you mistake your attachment to the investment as love, and it's not really love. When you sit down with people who can say they felt a real, or they have a real connection with their partner, I think every story, I don't know of any one story that's opposite of this, they will all say it was pretty much instant. First date, you may not know 100% fact, I'm gonna marry this person, but you knew the potential was there. You knew like this could be the one. That at least came to mind. And so again, when we don't have that in that first conversation, that first day, it's unlikely. I'm not gonna sit there and say it's impossible that it can happen days later or a week later or whatever. But typically, and even if you can't articulate it as you knew they could be the one, when people look back, they can tell you that they felt something very strong in that initial engagement with their partner that said they knew something was different. They may not even know what it was, but they knew, okay, this isn't normal. This isn't like the rest. Something's going on here. And then there's a full realization of this is it.
What is that something that we can't understand, that feeling? What is that called? Is that just like your magnets connected to each other? Is that your energy is so attracted because there's so much opposites or it's so much similarities? What is that force that gets people to say there was something different about this person when I met them?
I personally believe it's your spirit recognizing its match. Because there are, if you speak to a lot of people of different religious beliefs, there's the belief that things happen in the spirit before they happen in the physical. All right. So it's almost like the spirit is ahead of us, which is why the spirit knows the truth, which is why intuition, gut instinct, third eye, whatever you want to call it, it always seems to be accurate because your spirit knows before you know. So we're feeling it within our spirit. The problem is it's getting our mind in tune with the spirit. It's allowing our heart to accept what the spirit is saying to us. But we feel it, we just don't know how to always explain it. Those who are very in tune with the spirit can recognize it much quicker and accept it for what it is much quicker because they're very in tune already.
Why is it so hard for our mind and our heart to get caught up to our gut or intuition of that initial explosion of chemistry? And also, can that explosion of connection and chemistry be harmful in a different way?
Okay, so one, fear. Fear is the number one reason why we struggle to accept. So one of the things I explain to a lot of women, and I have my membership group for them. So I've had this discussion where I say, listen, the difference between intuition and fear is logical deduction. So when you're trying to analyze and break things down, that's your mind, all right? And fear is coming into that because you're saying, well, I shouldn't do this because of that, or this can't be this because of that. Intuition requires no logic. Your spirit requires no logic. It simply feels, it senses, it knows. That's it. You don't have to explain it. Again, gut instinct doesn't require things to logically add up. It just tells you this is it, or something's wrong, or this is right, or whatever the case may be. So fear is the number one thing, and that fear stems from lack of healing from past relationships. We've been down this road of emotional investment. We've gotten hurt before. We've been wrong in our lives about wanting to believe someone could be it. Even though we know this feels different, we still have the fear of disappointment that creeps back in.
How do we
And
let
so
go of that fear and not sabotage an amazing opportunity in a relationship?
you got to heal from your past. There's no way around it. And this is why I say people who have not healed, they can meet their connection right now, the most amazing partner, and it will scare them to death. And they will either run, self-sabotage, something. It's going to be a problem because they have not healed. And when you have not healed, the vulnerability that's required in connection is so unlike anything else or with anyone else that if you don't have a level of confidence and, again, a foundation of healing in your life, it seems way too overwhelming and scary. So you've got to heal in order to not find yourself sabotaging, run away, and not being able to embrace that real love.
What if both parties come to something and there's this explosion of chemistry or just instant, like, wow, there's something different feeling, and both have not healed their past, but they stay together, they figure it out, and they're together? Is there going to be a lot of problems and trauma and stress that comes up over the years if they both haven't healed before they get into a relationship? Or can they heal in the relationship together?
It is possible. Let me backtrack a little bit. First, let me say that people have to understand there is the such thing as right person, wrong time. All right. Mm-hmm. People don't want to believe that. There are a lot of people who reject that idea. They say, oh, if it's the wrong time, it's not the right person. That's not true. You can meet that individual that you have an amazing connection with, but both parties still need growth before they can come together. All right. And so now,
what happens if they come together and they haven't healed?
So here's the thing. It is possible to get through that and survive and have a healthy relationship. It is unlikely for most people to survive being with someone you have a connection with and you have not healed. Again, most people won't even allow themselves to be with that person.
They'll sabotage it so much. They'll dive in, but then they'll cheat, or they won't respond to the person. They'll do something, right?
Yes, and speaking of cheating, they tend to have a history of going back to an ex because the ex feels safer because it's not as vulnerable over there. All right, I can maintain more emotional control. It's familiar, so it's easier. So I've seen plenty of situations where, again, the connection was so overwhelming, so they ran back to their ex. No one, they're not for the ex is not for them, and they're not for their ex. But again, it just feels safer there. So yes, a lot can go wrong if you try to be together when you have not healed and you have this connection. It would be best to acknowledge, okay, you know what? We got some work we need to do. We realize we have a connection here. Let's work on ourselves in the meantime before we take that next step.
Can you heal while having sex with one or multiple partners for fun on the side?
I'm not going to say it's impossible, but again, highly unlikely. Sex is such a distracting thing. And we have to understand that so much can come from our sexual interactions. There can be new drama. There can be, an unwanted pregnancy. There can be a host of things. And all of that will derail you in the healing process. You also have to be honest with yourself. You may be having the sex because you're trying to distract yourself from the healing. Like the sex is just a coping mechanism for you. Same as drugs, same as alcohol. People turn to these things because they don't want to deal with their reality in life. So you got to be honest. Are you trying to just bury your head in sexual interactions? Or is it just, if it's happening in a natural flow of life, okay, then there's a greater chance that you can survive this, but you got to be really careful. I would suggest cutting that off if you're trying to heal. Again, I don't want to say it's impossible, but you're going to make it extremely difficult and highly unlikely.
For sure. I want to ask you about the best ways to meet someone these days, 2020 moving forward, the do's and don'ts for online dating. But what I'm hearing you say is that you shouldn't be trying to meet someone. You shouldn't be doing the online dating game until you've fully healed, or at least started the process of healing, because healing is a journey. Sometimes things take a lot longer to heal fully, but at least acknowledging and starting that process. What would be a process to start healing your past relationships or pains before we get into the conversation of do's and don'ts of online dating?
Okay. So of course, going to a therapist or coach is the ideal thing to do. You typically need that outside party that can help you process some things, help you see new perspectives, and go through a process of healing. Now, I will be honest, not every coach and therapist is gonna help someone heal. Sometimes it just turns into a venting session. So you've got to be real careful about, okay, if I've been going to this therapist or coach for many weeks or months now, what progress have I really made? Have I been resolving, or have I been coping? Because many are teaching you how to cope and manage and how to function within your brokenness, but they're not resolving it and helping you heal. Now, of course, I'm big on healing. So I have my book, Love After Heartbreak, which gives people the exact steps to healing. So one of the steps, I'll give you the first step, is getting the hurt out in front of you. So it's this who hurt me list. And so you get a piece of paper, you write down who hurt me, and you ask yourself the question, who hurt me? And now everyone who comes to mind, you put them on the paper. Doesn't matter if it happened very long ago. Doesn't matter if you think you moved past it. If they come to mind when you ask the question, then that means there's some kind of relevance there. And so now you put them on the paper in like 2 sentences of what they did to hurt you. This will now at least help us identify what you've been holding on to and where the hurt is and what needs to be properly addressed. And then from there, we can do the other steps of getting things off your chest and forgiveness and all these different things that's involved in healing.
I love that. I'm a big proponent of writing letters to people that you never send them, telling them how it made you feel, what you're frustrated and angry about with them, forgiving them, letting it go. And then I like to burn the letter and bury it as well in the ground to hopefully create a sense of like, okay, this was alive in me and now I'm killing this and this feeling, this energy, and I'm putting it to bed and I'm putting it back in the world to hopefully create something new, to grow something new and more loving and powerful and create that intention. But I think that's really important. When should we know that we are healed enough? How do we know when our healing has gone far enough down its journey before we should get into meeting someone new, putting ourselves out there on social media, online dating apps, and things like that?
All right. Well, first thing I want to say is, now there are going to be times where sending the letter to the person is actually the best thing to do.
Really?
Yes. A lot of people are scared about that, and it's a very difficult hurdle to jump. But I literally got a DM today from a woman who read the book. She wrote her letter last year. It was to her mother. She didn't want to send it. She held on to it. She says she just finally built up the courage, because I tell them in the book, 99% of the time, I'm going to tell you to send the letter.
Wow.
And so she finally did it. And she said they end up having the best conversation they've ever had in their life. Now they're like the best of friends. Like, it's taking their relationship to a whole new level. And that's not the purpose of sending it, but there's so much good that can come from taking the extra step of actually sending the letter and making sure that person is aware of how you felt and what you were going through. Now, in regards to knowing when you've properly healed, number one thing is when you can embrace being fully vulnerable with somebody. All right. If vulnerability still scares you, you have not healed enough. All right. You've got to be willing to open your heart. We can't say we want love and then put walls up around our heart and be afraid to give it to someone. You're contradicting yourself. You're working against yourself. So you've got to be willing to be vulnerable. You also have to make sure any negative perceptions that you've held onto due to past experiences, you've done away with them. So for example, if you have been saying all men are dogs because you've been hurt by so many men, well, you can't be out there dating and still screaming all men are dogs. That's not going to work in your favor. You've got to accept that good men exist, that you can receive a great man, that you deserve a great man. So when you have a more positive outlook and way of thinking, and listen, we're going to all have our negative thought moments. That happens. But your dominant or more consistent thought pattern is positive, hopeful, and things of that nature. Now we can say you're ready to get back out there.
How important is the language or the inner thoughts, the actual physical words we use in the inner language, the inner dialogue, in terms of attracting or finding the right partner?
It's extremely important. You know, we hear it all the time. Words are power. And the reality is that the words you speak to yourself, the thoughts you have, they will, whether knowingly or unknowingly to you, they will dictate your energy, the energy that you give off to people, or the way that your spirit comes across to individuals. And so you can put on a happy face, but if your thought is negative, pessimistic, all right, and dwelling in this, then your energy will still be negative. All right, what you do on the surface isn't going to be able to hide that, which is why you have some people who swear, well, I'm not a bad person. Yeah, but you're not a positive person. All right, you may be good people, but no, you are miserable. And it's not even just you're miserable, like you're dwelling in it in your life, but you give off miserable energy. And so who's going to want to be around that? Who's going to want to commit to that? At the most, they might want to have sex with you, but they're not going to want to tie themselves to you in a committed long-term relationship or marriage.
And people can feel that energy. I don't care if you're a man, woman, or in between. You can feel the energy of someone. And if you haven't healed properly yourself, you may be attracted to a wounded individual to then try to find some validation or try to find some connection there. And that's why it's important for you to heal so that you can fully see the energy around you and see who is a potential great match for you. Because if you haven't healed, you're going to keep attracting negativity and repeating certain patterns. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. And if you talk to any person who has healed, they can tell you how they feel energy even more now, where they become more aware. It's so much easier to see past the facades that so many people are putting up, because now healing allows us to get more in tune with our spirit. And by getting more in tune with our spirit, we get more in tune with everyone's spirit. Because technically we are all connected through the spirit, all right? And so it's easier to be in touch with that when you get rid of the blockage of trauma, past disappointments and hurts, disappointments, things of that nature.
It's powerful stuff, man. I'm still trying to get to one of my first questions, which is what's the best way to meet someone these days in online dating? But it sounds like that's so far ahead of what you need to be thinking about first. Like, have I started to heal? Are there people who have hurt me? Are there people that I need to apologize to? You know, all these different things. It's almost like you got to do the work before you can start doing the work of finding someone.
Absolutely.
So what does it mean
rich?
to be rich? How much are we talking about? Because
just money. If we're talking about money,
yeah,
you know, I think you probably need 20.
20 million. Then you're rich.
You need 20 million. You probably need 20. Now
like,
the problem with this, okay, this is where everybody hates the podcast now. See, the problem is nobody wants to like confront the real magnitude of the mathematics. And that's why people are, that's ridiculous shit. No, what you're saying is you can't imagine how to get to 20 million. See, I wish somebody had told me this in accounting. I went to accounting I spent 5 years getting an accounting degree. I only went there for one reason. I thought they were going to teach me how to account. I thought it was a freaking money course. Mm-hmm. Okay? No. I'm thinking in the 5th year, dude, it took me 5 years to get out of this course. I'm thinking this year they're going to teach me about the money. There's nothing about money. And the only reason I went to that course was to figure out, dude, how do you make money? How do you keep money? How do you multiply money? The basic money class. Mm-hmm. So, like, if you just do the math, a guy's like, oh, man, 80 grand, I'm good, 80 grand. Another guy's like, 100 grand and I'm good. They haven't done the math. Another person says, if I just have $1 million, I'm good. But you haven't done the math, the actual math, you know? Like, how much money is that really? You know, 100 grand in Los Angeles, 13,000 goes to the state, you have $87,000. Okay, half that goes to the federal government, you're at $42,500. I've done the math.
Yeah.
Okay, you're at $42,500. You go to Whole Foods once a week just to take care of your little baby girl and your wife, you're broke. Okay, so you're broke. You're broke. Okay, and we hadn't handled the healthcare issue.
Right.
Trump care, Obama care. You don't care if you don't get your money right. I mean, that's the facts.
Yeah.
So most people have never done the math. There is no school on it. There's no class on it. Why not?
Is that?
Why, man?
So frustrating.
But do you know how many people the middle class support? How many bad, awful groups?
Yeah.
You know? I mean, just think about it, man. Like if the middle class, if 215 million people in America knew the truth, and they weren't sitting there saying, but look at my 2 cars. Look at my 2 little girls, and I got dresses for them. And look at people in Ethiopia. They're starving. You went over to Africa. You know, compare their situation to our middle class. Everybody here is rich, including the guy on the street corner that's a panhandler.
Absolutely.
Right? So why is the freaking killer question? Why have so many people been put under the spell of the middle class? That is who determines who's the president of a country.
Right.
Look what happened in this last election. Mm-hmm. Okay, that middle class is starting to get a little edgy right now. They're starting to be like, Dad, I hadn't had a good job. I hadn't had a freaking pay raise. You keep talking about unemployment going down. Where's my money? Okay, I don't get anything at the bank. I earn 0.5% at the bank. So your mom, my mom, I watched my mom earn 12% at the bank. She earned 1% a month on her money. So the battle cry back then was save your money because you could earn something.
Right.
Save your money today. What do you get?
Nothing.
Nothing.
You lose
dude.
money.
You lose money. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Inflation is, yeah.
don't take a risk. Don't take a chance. Diversify. Why would I diversify? Why rich people do not diversify? Okay. The wealthiest people on this planet, when they went into trains, they went all in on the trains. When Henry Ford went into cars, he didn't diversify. He went all in on cars. Elon Musk, he's going all in on solar, right? That's how you make hits. But the middle class is taught what? Put a little here, put a little here, put a little here, put a little here. Put 27 different things out there. Why? Who benefits from 27 investments?
Those people.
Wall Street.
Yeah.
Okay. Start early. Start early. Start early. Okay. Get a Keogh account. Get an IRA. Who benefits? Freaking Wall Street, dude. All that money gets pushed over there for 30 years. So
where do you put your money then? Personally?
well, let me just say this.
Yeah.
If they offer it to you, okay, it's like insurance in Vegas at a blackjack table. You know, when you got they got an ace up and they're like, you want insurance? Dude, if they offer it to you in Vegas, this is what my mama told me. She's like, if they offer it to you, don't take it. So if Wall Street offers something to you, it's probably not good for you. So where do I put my money? I put my money, number one, where I have total control. Number two, where it is indestructible. Like the investment has to be indestructible. So I'm indestructible, right? I can invest in me, and I'm in control of that investment. That's the first that I would tell everybody, like, don't even invest. Don't even think about financial investment until you have $100,000 set aside. And until then, you got 5, you got 10, you got 22, you got 50. Just keep reinvesting that money in yourself, courses, classes, whatever. And until you're taking the action necessary, the money will show up at the bank if you keep investing in you, the vehicle. And then the second thing is where the money goes, okay, the money's got to go into something indestructible. No technology can wipe it out. And it needs to be very simple for me. Like so simple that I can explain in one sentence.
So what's that?
Well, it's not Bitcoin because I can't get my head wrapped around the cryptocurrency, and most people can't explain it to me.
But you're receiving payments from Bitcoin.
I will take your crypto.
Yeah.
I'll take it, but I'm not going to invest in it.
Yeah.
I'll take anything, dude. I'll take your donkey.
Yeah.
You know?
Sure.
So my office feels differently about that, but. Because we had this phone call like, hey, will you take 50,000 in Bitcoin? And Sherry was like, no. Jared's like, no. I'm like, hey, dude, take that money, son. Okay, take that freaking
If
exchange.
it's that or
whatever,
nothing.
Man, dude, take it, man. Don't tell people no. Figure out how to make it all right to say yes to it. So what was your question? You said
so what are you putting it in then?
Yeah, I mean, I load up. Everybody knows I'm loading up in real estate. You know, I buy apartment buildings. And so the simple thing is I buy a place where somebody has to live. They rent it from me, and they're going to rent it from me for years, and that's going to pay down the debt on that place. I don't own homes. I don't buy houses. I buy rental property that people have to live in, they want to live in because they're great properties. They're really nice properties. And it's affordable living. It's not this $5,000 a month, stuff that you live in.
Right.
It's affordable, $1,100 a month, great neighborhoods, great properties, safe environments. We go in and improve them, fix them up, happy living, take care of people. We don't abuse anybody. I don't do any government programs,
right?
Even though there's a lot of money in them. And I know that money will be there for my kids 30 years from now. I mean, that money will be there 100 years from now.
So you put 100% of your investments in that, or either in yourself, your team, or real estate?
In my business, in myself, my business. Every surplus penny, twice a year I go broke. Twice a year I'm like, put it all in.
Into real estate?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then it's gone.
And then you have to regenerate.
And I got to go back and but literally I'm like real estate guys, there's a saying with real estate guys, don't ever go to dinner with them, because they never have any cash on them. I'm broke right now.
Really?
We're going all in right now. So
You're buying a big unit or big units, right?
I exhaust my reserves, and then we got to go back out and say, okay, let's go again.
Really?
Let's go sell a book. Let's go get a millionaire booklet out there in the marketplace. Because there's nobody that I know in our space that will push as hard for a $9 product as I will.
I don't know anyone.
Right? Nobody.
I don't know anyone.
Nobody. I'll go from one.
Maybe you know Tim Sykes.
Yeah.
He pushes pretty hard. Do you know who
but
he is?
he won't drop down to like a $3 product, dude.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe not. But
I mean, you can come to one of my seminars. You'll see me at the back table, freaking selling $2 stickers.
So why is that?
Because it's a flow, dude. It keeps the flow going. Okay, it's about money's about it's about a what is this? It's a cycle, circulation. It's circulation. This has to happen for you to have money, and the bigger the circulation, you know. I was in Australia. I was on this dive. It was a 9-day dive, liveaboard. We didn't see land for 8 days.
Wow,
dude, I saw so much activity underneath, right, at 80 feet, at 100 feet. Like there was economies without any money, tremendous economies where they're trading food, right? I mean, there's all this activity, giant tunas. I mean, a grouper bigger than this wall right here, where there's this food, right? There's just this cycle of food and ecosystem. And that's what the economy is. The economy is basically an ecosystem of people that either have confidence or don't have confidence. You know, screaming and yelling. That's why I like New York. I love New York because you could feel that energy. I like a circus because, you know, you got the guy hawking. You know Ed McMahon? You remember Ed McMahon? Uh-huh. Okay, Johnny Carson. He was the opener for Johnny Carson. A lot of you might. How old are you?
34.
Yeah, so you probably don't even know who Ed McMahon was. Ed McMahon, he was the opener for Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson preceded Jay Leno.
Yeah.
And the other dude.
The Late Show or whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly. He was the ultimate. Yeah. Well, Ed McMahon was his opener.
The guy who hyped him up.
Yeah.
To the crowd.
Here's Johnny.
Yeah.
Right? And that went on for 30 years, dude. I grew up with that in my household, right? So black and white. And Ed McMahon, his first job was a barker in a circus. Where he'd be like, right over here. You see him in the Home Depots, right? To the Vitamix machine. Ladies and gentlemen, come on over, okay? Have something to do, right? They're pitchmen, they're dragging audiences, which is such a powerful thing. Mm-hmm. And so many people today are unwilling to do that. Like, no, I'm not going to do that, you know? Look at the actors and actresses in this town that wait for the audition. Wait for the phone to ring rather than show up cold to an audition and say, I know, I'm not on the list. They have to see me. Mm-hmm. Dude, that takes balls.
Balls.
Big time. Okay.
Wow. So you're selling $2 stickers and $200,000 programs, and anything in between, it doesn't matter to you.
And in November, we raised $15 million for the real estate. So
for a fund you're doing, right?
Yeah. So, you know, who do you know that can go from $1 to $15 million in a freaking, in literally like just that fast?
Wow.
But one thing is because I'm an ethical person. Like I think people need that sticker. I think people need that book. I think people need to invest with me because I'm not going to rip them off. I am in control of that property. Somebody has to be in control. Mm-hmm. So to the degree that you are a person, I believe, is ethically like clean hands, is to the degree that they can pitch full on.
So you can sell
hardcore,
as hard as you want, as much as you want.
And if you can't, there's something either in your present or in your past that you're still uncomfortable with. Something.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're too pitchy ever? Do you feel like maybe I was too aggressive?
Yeah. I've heard that before.
Maybe I've
heard that before from people that didn't buy from me. Only from people that didn't buy from me. People that buy from me never complain about me being too pushy.
What do you think about the people that never buy from you but are following you and commenting? And
I just either hadn't pitched it right, hadn't found the right time to pitch them, or they haven't seen the right product yet. You know?
Right.
So
the biggest.
Or maybe they're never going to buy from me.
When I hear the word mindfulness, to me, what it really means is intentionality. Mm-hmm. What I mean by that is, are you crafting, designing, and intentionally creating your life? Or are you just coasting in the passenger seat of your life, which is just dragging you and driving you wherever it's taking you? And so it's the difference between being the driver or being in the passenger seat. Mm-hmm. And so to me, living intentionally is what allows you to live a life of by design. And so I'll give you an example of what mindfulness can look like. There's something in the book that I talk about called the 3 S's, which are sights, sense, and sounds. Now, if you think about that, we're exposed to sights, sense, and sounds every single day.
Yeah.
Every single day. But how many of us have crafted those to be sights, sense, and sounds that we want in our life? So this is what I realized. When we were monks, one of the most important things was, what was the first thing you saw, the sight, when you woke up?
And right now, most people are probably seeing their screen.
Yeah, I think 80% of people look at their screens first thing in the morning and the last thing at the night. So you're seeing your screen first thing in the morning. But what are you really seeing? You're seeing everyone else's priorities. You're seeing everyone else's issues and challenges. You're seeing everyone else's messages to you, which means you're already starting your day off reactively. But what if you started your morning looking at a painting that inspired you, or a picture of a loved one that brought joy in your heart, or your favorite quote by Lewis or by anyone else that when you read that in the morning, you were like, oh yeah, I feel in charge today to make a difference in the world. So imagine the first thing you saw in the morning was something inspiring. How much would your day change? That's mindfulness. Mindfulness is being intentional and mindful about what you are exposing yourself to. Let's talk about sounds next. So sounds was something that I started to study actually much later from a modern life perspective. But when we were monks, we would wake up to birds, we would wake up to water, we'd wake up to gongs or cymbals. Chants, exactly, which are all beautiful sounds. Now, the crazy thing is all of us wake up to something called an alarm. Now,
right, just like...
Literally, I don't know why anyone would want to wake up to an alarm. Why would you want to wake up alarmed? It means now your system is alarming. Like, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to wake up in shock, in a state of like a jolt? I don't think that's a positive way to wake up. So changing the sound that you wake up to. Now, I'm not saying that everyone can wake up to nature sounds. Maybe you're one of those people who just hit the snooze button again. But what if you woke up to a sound or a song that brought you joy? Now, when I lived in New York for 2 years, between 2016 and 2018, I started to feel quite exhausted by the end of the day. And I was really looking into like, why is it that I feel tired? And I started to realize I came across this term called cognitive load. And what it means is that a lot of the sounds that you hear in New York City are sounds that are insignificant for your mind to process. Drilling, construction work, taxis honking, driving, cars screeching, scratching.
People yelling at each other.
People yelling at each other on the streets. Like, all of that sound is called cognitive load, where your brain is now trying to make sense of meaningless sound.
Or it's also just like, should I be afraid? This is a loud sound. Is my brain going to fight or flight? Like, I need to protect myself. So you're always being alarmed.
Yeah, exactly. And you hear sirens. The amount of sirens that I remember hearing on the streets. Now, when you hear sirens have an emotional trigger. And they have an emotional response to them. So think about your day. Think about when you come home from work. Well, now you're working from home.
Right.
What sound do you want to hear when you're working? What sound do you want to hear at the end of the day? When you sound design your life, that's called mindfulness. That's being intentional. Yes. And then finally, scent. Scent is such a powerful sense that we're not even aware. How many of you, when you smell your favorite food, can't already wait to eat it? Like, you can almost taste it.
Salivating.
You're salivating. You can taste it already without, just through scent. Why is it that every time you walk into... my favorite, I think pizza has one of the best scents.
Well, your wife Rowdy's got some amazing food. That was amazing scent. When I walked in the kitchen last week, I was like, this is amazing.
That was for you. That was special. That was for you. That was for you. That was a good meal. That was a really good meal. She really appreciated that you love to eat too. Like, she was happy. Her heart was full.
Exactly. Bring a former jock into your house and you'll clear all the food out.
She was like, I've never seen someone eat that much. And I was like, he's this like big American dude. I was like, Lewis is like, he can eat. And so, no, it was great. She was so happy that you appreciated it so much. She really appreciated that.
But the scent is important in your life.
When you walk into a massage spa, it's the scent, the eucalyptus, the lavender, the sandalwood.
It puts you in a peaceful state.
Dude, scent puts you in zen without trying. And so mindfulness is intentionally creating a life that makes you feel what you want to feel without having to just create the feeling from inside. You may say, Jay, I really struggle trying to be positive. I struggle trying to deal with anxiety. I struggle trying to be focused. your sight, sense, and sounds can help you do that.
Yeah.
And you start creating an environment where you naturally feel that. Like today when I walked into your studio, I saw your books, I saw all these motivational quotes, I saw a boxing glove, and it's like all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm in a uplifting environment, right? So you already get triggered.
Exactly. Yeah, I think a friend of mine mentioned one time on the podcast, Chris Lee, said you want to create an environment like a rainforest where things can thrive and grow, as opposed to having an environment like a desert where things go to die.
That's beautiful.
And if you have sights, sense, and sounds that are like a desert for your life or your heart, then it's going to be hard to grow those things from your heart. But if you create an environment of a rainforest where things can grow, water, nature, cool air, things like that, then you can really start to cultivate that growth.
Yeah.
You mentioned about creating and designing your life. How much of the world do you think we receive by being here? And how much of the world do we create ourselves?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. It's a complete dynamic dance between what the Vedic tradition would call fate and free will. So fate is what is already created for you. And a good example would be the place you were born, the type of family you grew up in, the socioeconomic background you had. It was already there when you walked into the world. But within that, you had choices where your free will came about. You had the choice to either do what everyone in your neighborhood did or to do something different. You had the choice to have a relationship with a particular person or not. So what happens is that we're constantly creating new spaces from which we have another choice.
Right.
And so you kind of see it as this dynamic dance between, okay, now I'm in this situation, and now what is my choice in this situation? So I would say, I'm not saying it's equal, I'm saying it's a dynamic balance and a switching process where you're constantly creating a new level, and then now in that level you have a next choice.
Because we didn't have the choice to be created here. We were here, and that wasn't our choice. Now, everything after that is our choice, right?
Yeah, and there are some traditions, and I'm a big diver into like reincarnation and past lives. So according to the beliefs of reincarnation or past lives, you have at some point made a choice to be here. But taking it more simplistically, the truth is that when you're brought into a situation, it's the best analogy that I've heard, and it's been told for years, is of a father is an alcoholic. One of the sons that he has decides to become an alcoholic because his father's an alcoholic. The other son decides to never drink alcohol because his father's an alcoholic.
Right.
So they were exposed to the same situation and same scenario. Same environment. But they both made different choices based on their experience. And that's the choice element. That's the element that we should be trying to empower in our lives, because we can constantly say, I'm limited by my environment, or I've been restricted by my environment. And hey, it's true. There are so many of us that have been limited and restricted. But by now you repeating that, you are going to repeat that restriction in your life.
How much of a positive environment supports us in our growth or holds us back? There are some people who have the perfect family situation, resources, beautiful backyards and nature, who are lazy. And there are others who have, divorced parents, abusive friends, an environment of a desert, and they figure out a way to thrive.
Totally.
How much importance does our environment play in our overall success?
If you look at the examples that you just shared and you really analyze life, you'd see very little, because you see people craft their own life. So a good example for me is that when I came back from living in the ashram, and there were other people who may have been monks who'd also left the path, and I came back to a not financially successful or supportive family. So my family doesn't have abundant wealth and couldn't necessarily have taken care of me or paid for me forever. And I had to figure out my own life. And that to me was a great sense of impetus and incentive to go and figure it out and learn new skills and network and meet people. And I saw other friends whose parents had like a property portfolio with like 10 properties ready to hand them over. They had a BMW the second that they came out, whatever, from their own life.
Yep.
Or I even have friends that had all of that and didn't become monks and didn't even find careers. So I've also got friends that I went to school with that today don't even have careers, even though their parents were really well established.
Right.
Which has, all of these examples have continued me to believe that we truly have influence in our, more than our environment. Our environment affects us for sure. It plants seeds and weeds into our life, but there is still a choice. And I think even if you feel there isn't a choice, simply by accepting that there is, it means you have a chance to get out of there. And I think that's what...
Because if you don't accept that there is, then you're just going to stay stuck.
Correct. Like, there've been so many times in my life, and there's a beautiful quote from Edison. I don't think I said this last time, but if I did, it's worth repeating. He said that when you believe you've exhausted all options, remember this, you haven't. And the reason why I love that is your mind continuously feels stuck when it's tried the obvious. And that's why a lot of creativity and focus studies say that the first 10 ideas that come to your mind are never the most interesting. It's when you get into the 11th idea that you start breaking the pattern. And so if someone asks you, oh, what's your best business idea? Your first 10 ideas are probably not that innovative. And so the mind constantly gets stuck on that train, and you've got to keep reminding yourself that there is another door. There could be another pathway. I was thinking about a piece of advice so one of my closest spiritual mentors, who was in London, I knew him since I was probably like 12 and properly since I was 18. He passed away this year from stage 4 brain cancer. And he'd had brain cancer for about, I think like 4 years now. And so I hadn't really had a real interaction with him for the past few years, because every time I saw him, he wasn't fully functioning in his short-term memory. His long-term memory was there, but his short-term memory wasn't. And I remember speaking to him probably about 7-8 years ago and asking him the question. I said to him, I've got so many ideas. There's so many things I could do. Where do I start? And he said this beautiful thing to me. He said, you know what? Your role should be to open up every door possible. And he said, let the world close the doors you're not meant to walk through and walk through the ones that remain open. And what I realized is most of us are just not opening up enough doors because we think we only have the option of 2 doors. We look at life as binary, 0 and 1, 0 and 1, right? It's just
this
A or B, this or that. And I mean, I think you'd say this too about you and every guest you've ever had on. I don't think life is ever this or that. It's like this, that, and maybe that, and that. And there's always a gap.
Of course. The challenge that people have that I've sensed a lot is the fear of criticism when you go after something that you weren't supposed to do or that people don't think you're supposed to do. Why do so many people fear criticism from peers, family, friends, the media? Why is that such a big fear? And how do we overcome criticism from others?
Psychologically, we feel a sense of safety and security when we think people agree with us, right? That is just psychologically true, that we would rather avoid conflict and sit in a space where we agree, and therefore we have something called confirmation bias and the echo chamber, where we keep surrounding ourselves with thoughts and ideas that are similar and reaffirm our beliefs. Now, I think that you can have that and at the same time entertain ideas that you're not sure about yet. And so one of my favorite examples was MIT did this study where they asked people which person was more creative and innovative. And they showed 2 charts. One chart was employee A and the other chart was employee B. The chart for employee A, all of the people they knew each other and knew them back. So it was almost like a closed loop. And employee B, they knew lots of people who didn't know each other. And they found that people who have more people in their network who don't know each other are more likely to be creative and productive.
Really? Why is that?
Because they expose you to opposing ideas and they may counteract how you think. So one of my favorite examples of this is a conversation between Mark Zuckerberg and one of his mentors. So Mark Zuckerberg told this story at the Facebook headquarters a few years back. I wasn't there, I've seen it on video, and I'm sure it's available. And he talks about how when he was struggling with the direction of Facebook in 2009, he approached his mentor. And his mentor happened to be Steve Jobs.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
Wow.
Pretty cool. I wish.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. And so anyway, so Mark Zuckerberg goes to Steve Jobs and he says, I'm struggling with the direction of Facebook. Remember at that time, Facebook was 5 years old.
There was no fan pages, I don't think.
I don't think there was no creators. I don't think there were fan pages. It was very much used by university students at that stage. Like I think it was mainly like Ivy Leagues.
College kids.
Kids. And I don't even think it was international in a massive way, very early days, and now we can't even think of that. But 2009, I mean, you just about had the iPhone and just about had Instagram
Crazy,
and YouTube.
man.
So he went up to Steve Jobs and he said, I'm struggling with the direction of Facebook. What do I do? Now, Steve Jobs at that time obviously was already the founder of one of the biggest brands on the planet, and obviously the brand still is. He had access to investors, he had access to business coaches, I'm sure he had access to life coaches, he had access to
Health experts and everything.
He had access to anything. Like, I don't think there was anyone, scientists, PhDs, I don't think there's anyone in the world who Steve Jobs couldn't have called up at the time. And Steve Jobs said something amazing. He said, you know what, Mark? I think you should go and live in an ashram in India.
He did not.
He did.
No
It's
way.
a true story. He goes, and when you go to live in the ashram in India, that's where, if you spend some time there, that's where you'll find your answer.
Shut up.
And Mark did it.
No
Mark
way.
went to the ashram. This is a true story.
For how long?
I believe he was there for, I've seen two online. I've seen two versions of the exact time he was there. I've seen some people said it was a couple of days or a week, or some people said it's a month. So I think it's hazy how much time he actually spent there. But he went. And he says that based on that experience, that's where he found the direction of Facebook, to be connecting people. Now, the reason why I love that story is because it's the unobvious, alternative, random connection. And when Harvard did a study of 3,000 executives, they looked at and asked them, what's the number one skill for being a good leader? And a lot of people would say communication, a lot of people would say vision, strategy, humility. And the number one answer that they got from 3,000 executives was the one word, which is called associating. And what that means is the ability to spot patterns where everyone else doesn't see them. And that's the connect, that real leaders can spot patterns and connections in anomalies. So most people will be like, what has an ashram got to do with a tech platform?
Right.
But that is where you expand your mind to find answers that you never expected.
How important is creating alone time with noises, people, busy work to allow your mind to expand? Is that the only time in that silence? I think you mentioned it. Silence to hear in between the lines.
Yeah.
Is that where we start to hear what we're supposed to be creating, where we're supposed to be heading, our mission?
I'm really glad you brought that back. I wanted to get back to that. So when we talk about, there's a beautiful statement by David Lynch, who's movie producer and a deep meditator. And he says that prayer is how you talk to God, and meditation is how God talks to you.
Ooh.
And whether you believe in God or the universe or spirit or divine, whatever it means, the point is that there is a dialogue and a conversation.
So prayer is like you're speaking, you're saying, here's what I want.
Here's how I feel.
Help me,
yeah.
And meditation is more receiving.
Receiving, yeah. And so I love that statement because I think it makes it very clear that we have to have a dialogue with the universe. We have to have a dialogue with people in our lives. We have to have a dialogue, and there's both giving and receiving. So when I talk about hearing in between the lines, the best example I can give you, Lewis, is let's take a look at you and your relationship and mine and my wife's relationship. One of us is always traveling.
Yeah.
So you travel, your partner travels, I travel, my wife travels. Sometimes we're missing each other. Imagine you've got really busy and hectic. Do you think, and anyone listening or watching, you can ask the same question, if you were really busy and hectic and stressed out, do you think your partner feels comfortable to tell you how they feel and get your attention?
If I'm busy, stressed out, overwhelmed, will my partner tell me how I feel about themselves or about...
Yeah, do you think they would feel confident to be like, Lewis, I need to tell you something really important?
I don't think they would.
They wouldn't.
Yeah.
They really wouldn't, because...
They don't want to stress you out more.
They don't want to stress you out more.
You're not present, all these things.
Exactly. So, exactly that. And so what happens is, when you're still, your mind and body actually get to speak to you and give you signals of how they feel. And so when you're still, that's when you notice that ache in your foot that you haven't noticed for a month. Sometimes when you slow down, that's when you get sick, because your body wasn't allowing itself to be sick because you were pushing it to get through stuff. And so just like your partners can't communicate with you until you slow down, your body and mind can't communicate with you until you still. And so there's a beautiful Buddhist teaching that says what movement does for the body, stillness does for the mind. And so when we find that space, stillness, and solitude, you really are able to hear your deepest desires and challenges, your physical pains and areas of growth. It's one of the reasons why when people meditate, they feel sleepy afterwards and they think they're doing it wrong, but actually they're doing it right. Meditation just told you needed more sleep.
You need to rest.
Yeah, meditation was just a signal. So sometimes when I meditate with people that I'm coaching,
It's like pass out.
yeah, some of them will be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Jay. I'm just feeling so tired." And I'm like, "No,
then sleep, then
that's,
rest."
Yeah, that's what your body's telling you because you finally listened." And some people are like, "Oh, Jay, I feel so energized." And I'm like, "Yeah, because you allowed yourself to be in line with your body, and now your body's saying that you feel energized, and that's great. You've got that energy. Go work out. Go build something." So.
Or you've cleared out those negative thoughts, or you've let go of those distractions, or that resentment, and so you're not feeling this weight, so you feel lighter.
Correct. And so that stillness and silence is one of my favorite ways for you to actually build that relationship with hearing your inner voice.
How do you manage your own ego with the success you get? You know, you've had success in multiple areas of your career, from a SEAL to an author to a business leader to an executive coach and leadership coach. How do you manage it when you are training CEOs from companies that have 100,000 plus employees and you're number one on the list and top podcast? How do you manage it daily?
Because I've seen over and over again through my own experiences, through the books that I cover on my podcast, the books I've read in my life, if you want to open yourself up for a massive downfall, just let your ego get out of control.
Really?
If you want to let that happen, yeah, let your ego get out of control. So every single day for me, it starts at ground zero. I've got to go forward with an open mind, with a humble mind, looking at the world. You know, it's classic. Like when I get asked a question, I don't think to myself, "Oh, I know the answer to this," and I get asked questions all the time.
Yeah.
And generally, when I hear a question, 99% of the questions that I hear, I've heard in some form before.
Sure.
But I don't go, "I've heard this before, I already know the answer." I say, "Okay, well, let me hear this. What detail is this person talking about? What angle is this person coming at it from? What can I learn from this question? How can I assess this question?" So everything that I look at, I try and look at from a humble perspective. If you don't do that, it's going to be a problem. I mean, even when you're asking me questions about God, right? You're asking me questions about my beliefs. It's like, hey, here's my beliefs. I'm humble and I'm listening and my mind is open. And this is what I've seen and this is what I can tell you about it.
Sure.
I'm not sitting here jumping up and down saying you should believe this or you should believe that. I'm saying you should stay humble. You should keep an open mind about what's going on in the world. I am. I think you should do the same thing.
Wow. How do you? So it's a mindset. Every morning you wake up with an open mind.
Yeah, and I don't want to get in this whole like morning routine where I go and look in the mirror and say, "Be humble." No, I don't do that. Like
Right.
I'm not. That's not me.
Right.
But when you wake up, and I'm just saying the way I go about my business and my life is to say to myself, "Okay, well, I could be wrong about that. I could be wrong about this."
Wow.
It's. I mean, even the book that I wrote, follow on to Extreme Ownership. The book is called The Dichotomy of Leadership. And what's interesting about this book, so the dichotomy of leadership is like, you can't be extreme in one direction or the other, right? You can't be, if you're in a leadership position, you can't talk all the time, right? Obviously, as a boss, you need to communicate, you need to talk to your people. But if you talk too much, guess what happens? People stop listening to you. You're putting out too much information. They don't know what's important and what's not. So that's bad. You can't go too far in that direction. The other direction is you can't not talk enough, and now no one knows what's going on, no one knows what's happening. So you have to be balanced, and that's the whole idea of the dichotomy of leadership. But probably the first dichotomy in leadership that I had to say to myself, you know what, there's another side to this, is I used to tell the young SEAL officers that you have to be aggressive. You got to be default aggressive. That's how you got to be. Because when something's going on, you got to be aggressive to get that problem solved.
Right.
And if you're not being aggressive, then you're hesitating. Well, then you can get killed. Okay, so there you go. And that's what I used to tell guys. And as
that's extreme. That's an extreme.
Yes,
style.
that's the problem with it.
Yeah.
And so the question is, can you be too aggressive?
Yes.
Absolutely. You can, hey, there's a machine gun nest over there. Let's attack it. So you charge up the hill and everyone dies.
Yeah.
You've been too aggressive. So what you have to do is you have to be balanced. And that's probably, so even as I had these kind of mantras, like default aggressive, can you do too much of that? Yes, you can. So you end up with this, what do you end up with? Can you be too passive?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, now we're not making any progress. Now we're getting crushed by the enemy because we didn't maneuver. Okay, so that's bad. So where do you want to be? You want to be balanced. Even the idea of extreme ownership. Can you take too much ownership?
Yes.
Yes, you can.
Really?
Yes, you can.
But I thought you said you need to take ownership of everything.
Two different things. Listen to this.
Okay.
If you're working for me and I say, okay, here's the mission that I want you to accomplish tonight. Here's the people I want you to take. Here's the weapons I want you to bring. Here's the vehicles I want you to bring. Here's the route I want you to use to get to the target. Here's the method I want you to use to secure the target. Here's the route I want you to do to get back.
Yeah.
So that's the plan. Now you take ownership and go execute. Now, can you really take ownership of that plan?
If someone else gave you the whole thing?
I mean, I gave you the whole thing, right? Is that your plan?
No.
No, it's
your
not your
plan, yeah.
It's my plan. So when you go in the field and now you come up against an obstacle and you're executing my plan, what's your attitude?
Well, it's not my plan. It's his
and,
plan. Yeah.
And you're at an obstacle now and you're like, hey, Jocko didn't think of this.
Right.
So his
New
plan's
obstacle.
horrible.
Yeah.
So now you just back away and you come back and you say, hey, we failed the mission because you didn't think of this.
You didn't think of this option. Yeah.
Right. So that's me taking too much ownership. So what I need to do is I say, hey, here's the plan, or here's the mission. How do you want to do it? And now if you're a good leader, you'll go get with your people and you'll say, oh, hey guys, here's the plan, or here's the mission that we have to accomplish. How do you guys want to do it? Now you all come up with a good plan, and you come back to me and you say, here's the plan. And I say, that looks pretty good, go execute. And now when you hit an obstacle in the field, what's your attitude?
I need to adapt. I need to adjust.
It's your plan. You'll make it.
We came
win.
up with this. Yeah.
Yes. So can you take too much ownership? The answer is yes, you can. So with just about every, you can name a trait, right? You can name a trait from a leadership perspective that you think is a positive trait, and you'll immediately see that if you go too far with it, it'll become bad. It'll become bad. So you have to be balanced. So even as I came up with the dichotomy of leadership, I had to be humble enough to say to myself, you know what, being aggressive is really, really good most of the time, but if you're too aggressive, that's not good.
Yeah.
So like you said earlier, you're constantly questioning everything. And to me, what that is, that's humility. That's you being humble enough to say, you know what, I really don't understand this that well.
Yeah.
And there's some things in my life that I don't get. Whereas as opposed to you walking around saying, I already got this figured out. I already know what I'm doing. I already know where I'm going. I already know what God is specifically. I already know what's going to happen to me when I die. All those things. But instead you're questioning everything, which in my mind is a positive thing.
Yeah, that's good to know. Is there anything that is missing in your life? Do you feel like something's missing?
No, I feel like I'm living a pretty good life right now. I mean, I'm totally blessed. I mean, I got a great family. I got great kids. I got a great company. I got working with great people.
Yeah.
No,
you're
life
healthy.
is good. Healthy. You know, I get to work out, train. I'm feeling good.
Living the dream, man.
Yeah, living the dream.
So you never feel like there's something missing for you right now. If there is, you're working towards it. You're working on the next book. You're building the business.
Yeah, well, there's a difference between something missing and am I satisfied?
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm not satisfied. I mean, I always want to go. Like I never get done with the end of the day and go, cool, mission accomplished. Like it's like not even close. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're not satisfied, but you feel like nothing's missing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say that's a fair statement.
What brings you the most joy in your life and makes you smile the most?
Oh, I mean, my kids. My kids are cool. They're funny. My wife and kids. Yeah, my wife and kids are cool and funny, and we have a good time and lots of inside jokes and all that.
Yeah.
You know, and I train jiu-jitsu, and that's very fun. And surf, that's fun.
Yeah.
Play guitar, that's fun.
How old are your kids again? Age?
20, 18, 16, and 10.
And what's the biggest lesson you learned about being about yourself being a father to them?
Your kids are not going to be who you want them to be.
You can't train them to be.
They're going to be who they are. And you can give them some course corrections a little bit, but they're going to be who they are. And the more you try and force them into what you want them to be, the harder they're going to push back and rebel.
Wow.
Yep.
Did you learn that the hard way, or did you get?
Yep.
So you tried to train them into a certain way, or?
Yeah, somewhat. And it's pretty obvious. Like from my perspective, I was having a similar conversation with a bunch of executives, and we went down the road because we're having dinner now, so we're done talking about work. But now everyone wants to ask me about parenting and everything else, And I said at the table, I'm like, hey, who here ended up doing exactly what their parents wanted them to do? And there's like one guy out of 10, right? Because most people, your parents are wanting you to do this thing and you do something else. I mean, I joined the Navy when I was 18 years old. Like that probably wasn't even on the checklist of top 20 things that my parents wanted me to do. Not even in the same ballpark, right?
Yeah, they didn't want you to go to war.
Yeah, they didn't want that. So here you go. Yeah, see ya. So the more you try and kind of pigeonhole your kids into being something that you want them to be, the worse off it's going to be. It's the same thing with leadership. It's the same thing with leadership. If I'm trying to force my plan down my team's throat, the more resistance I'm going to get from it. Whereas if I plant the seed and I allow that plan to grow with them, the better it's going to be received. Like when people ask me, how do you get people to buy in? Well, you allow them to come up with a plan yourself.
What if in your mind you're like, you really know that plan's not that good?
It depends on how bad it is. How bad is it? Or what's at stake? If you're working for me and you're going to meet with a client and you have a bad pitch that you're going to give them, and the client is some tiny client that I think is a low probability of us working with, and the contract doesn't really matter, I'd be like, hey, give it a shot. I might give you a couple adjustments. And give you some coaching on it, and then you go and you do your thing and you come back and you're like, oh no, we didn't land it. And I say, well, what do you think? Let's debrief. And now we talk about it. I said, you said this and you said that. Here's some other ways to go about it. I might even actually have you do it to me. So then I could sit there and take some notes and say, hey, here's some other things that might have worked. Now, if you were going to meet with a big client that really was going to add value to our company, I'm gonna either
step in.
I'm gonna step in and be like, okay, let's think about that. What's their reaction going to be? And by the way, that's when I'm not going to say, no, don't do it that way. I'm going to say, tell me that again, and let me give you some objections that you might hear from them.
That's good.
And all of a sudden, I'll let you come up with the solutions. Even though I'm sitting there going, yeah, what he needs to say is this. No, I'll let you come up with a solution. So then you're kind of going in there like you got this dialed. And then you're going to feel like you won, which you did.
That's great.
Which is great.
It gives you more ownership, more respect in yourself, confidence, belief. How important is feedback for leaders? Getting feedback from peers, coaches, or employees, team members.
Feedback is how you get better. No feedback, no improvement. So if you're not humble, you're not looking for feedback and you're not listening to it. So if you think you know everything, you're not listening, you're definitely not asking for it, and even when it gets told to you, you don't listen to it.
Yeah.
So feedback is built upon being humble.
What would you say is in your way to getting to the next level? What feedback do you think you need to hear or receive from your team or people in order to reach the next goals that you have?
I mean, the weird thing about me is, even though you might look at me and think, oh, who's going to tell this guy anything, right? The reality is, if anyone of my friends, my team, anyone that works for me up and down the chain of command, if they think I'm wrong, everyone will say, hey, I don't know if that's a good plan. So even, when I was a task unit commander, so I'm in charge, and I'm the head SEAL for this 40 SEALs. I'm the main guy.
Yeah.
Anyone in that chain of command, those guys would all come to me and say, hey, I don't know if this is a good way to do it. And you know what I'd say? Why not? What do you think? What are you thinking? How do you think we should do it? My mind is open. If my plan is bad, please tell me. They would know that. So my friends, my family, they'll tell me when I'm doing something wrong all day long.
They're not intimidated or scared of you?
No.
That's good.
No.
So how does a leader cultivate that with his family, friends, team, in order to welcome the feedback of the information?
Yeah, what you do is when somebody gives you feedback, you listen to it. Yeah. This is like, just the other day we have a leadership event that we do 2 or 3 times a year. But the thing that I was telling this group of people was, as a leader, you should be listening 98% of the time and talking 2% of the time. So every time you come to me and you say, hey, Jocko, I don't like this plan. I don't say, shut up and do it my way. No, I say, well, how would you want to do it?
Yeah.
Tell me what you don't like about it, and then tell me how you want to do it. So therefore, the next time you have an objection, you're like, the door's open, that I'm going to be open-minded and listen to you, and that's how you build it. Every time you shut someone down from speaking their mind, you actually are creating a negative environment where you're not going to get the feedback. And if there's no feedback, as we just said, you're not going to improve.
What are 2 things that any leader could do to improve their leadership skills right off the bat, 2 things you can think of? And what are 2 things that wannabe leaders do that hold them back from being great leaders? So what are 2 things they could add to our
2 things
skill
that you add.
sets?
Number 1 is listen, which we just talked about, so that's fresh on my mind. And you'd be surprised about how many leaders are thinking that because they're in a leadership position, they should be talking all the time. Wrong answer. Wrong answer. I'll sit through a meeting with a client or with one of my companies and I'll listen for 38 minutes. And at the end of those 38 minutes, I'll have already thought through every discussion that's been had. You know, you want to argue with him and he's arguing with her. And guess what? I get to sit there and assess those arguments and see which one is the most important. Meanwhile, you're expending all your ammunition. She's expending all her ammunition. He's giving up everything he's got. I'm learning all their thought patterns. I'm learning the pros and cons of each one of their arguments. And I do that for 38 minutes. And in the 39th minute, I say, hey, here's what I think we should do. And guess what? Because I've done an accurate assessment and listened, I'm actually going to be able to make the best decision.
Yeah.
It wasn't because I was smarter. It wasn't because I had better tactical understanding. It's because I actually shut my mouth, listened to everyone spill their guts, learned everything that they knew, and did a good detached assessment of what the right thing to do was. So listen, and the other one is the word that I just used, which is detach, which is not getting emotional, not getting into the weeds about stuff that doesn't matter. If you can take a step back and look around, you're going to see infinitely more than you can when you're in the weeds, staring the firefight in the face, looking down the sights of your weapon, shooting. If you're doing that, you can't see anything else. Just think about that metaphor right there.
Yeah.
If I'm looking down the sights of my weapon and I'm shooting, my world is this big. The minute that I stop shooting, point my weapon at high port, take a step back and actually look around, I can see infinitely more. So apply that to a meeting. It's just a meeting that we just talked about, a 38-minute meeting. All this chaos is happening. Sure, I'm the boss. I could jump in there and start arguing and giving my opinion. But what am I really doing then? What I'm really doing then is I'm in the weeds and I'm not able to assess what is actually happening. So there you apply it there. To your personal life. If you and I are arguing, you're my friend and you did something and now we're starting to escalate an argument and I'm starting to get emotional, am I able to listen to you anymore?
No.
Am I able to logically figure out what's going on? If I'm talking to my wife and she did something that made me mad and now I'm starting to raise my voice, is that whole situation going in the right direction?
No.
No, it's not. It's not. So what I need to do is take a step back, detach, calm down, listen to what she's saying, and then try and assemble a logical thing to say back without saying, you need to calm down or you're too emotional. No. Because if you come to me and you're mad about something, you come to me, whether it's my wife or whether you're a business partner, you come to me and you say, the supply department didn't give me the stuff I needed. If I say, hey, calm down, right? If that's my reaction, then you realize that I'm against you, right? I don't get it. And so now it's me and the supply department against you.
No one understands.
No one understands. So I do a little technique.
What is that? Yeah.
I call it reflect and diminish. So I'm going to reflect your emotions back to you, but I'm going to diminish them a little bit so that we're not escalating the situation.
How would you do this with your wife?
So if you come to me and you go, the supply department's been late, they're 2 weeks late on this stuff. I don't say, calm down. I say, oh, you got to be kidding me. 2 weeks? And you go, yeah, can you believe it? That's horrible. We got to put a solution. We got to get that figured out. In the meantime, what do we need to do right now to get the problem solved, right? So now we're on the same team so we can work together to find a
We
solution.
bonded on the pain.
Yes.
You felt the pain.
Yes. We're on the same team.
Yeah.
Okay, my wife, what's going to make my wife mad? The ice machine's not working. Right? The ice machine's not working.
It's your fault.
Yeah, whether it's my fault, but we don't know. The ice machine's not working. By the way, this is a real story. This is happening today.
Really?
The ice machine's not working. I mean, she didn't get mad about it, but the ice machine's not working. If I go, hey,
chill out.
You have a refrigerator and a house, and you got
Live on
plenty
the
of things. You
beach.
can just calm down,
Yeah.
right? How's that going to go? It's not going to go good. Now she's going to get mad. Now it's me against her. So instead, the ice machine's not working. Man, that thing is junk. Have you called the repair guy? You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden we're on the same team. And she's like, well, no, I haven't, but I'm about to. Okay, cool. As opposed to the ice machine's not working. Well, okay, do you want me to have ice shipped in from Alaska there, princess? Right? That's not gonna go over well. So
what did you call it?
Reflect and diminish.
Reflect,
Yeah,
and
reflect
diminish.
and
What if someone's coming after you and attacking you? Not like the supply chain or the ice machine, but it's like, you didn't do this.
Oh yeah.
This is your fault.
I want you to guess what I'm gonna do.
What's that?
What do you guess I'm gonna do? Like if you come and attack me and tell me something's my fault, what do you think I'm gonna do?
You personally?
Yes.
You would listen,
Yes.
reflect, and diminish.
I would actually
Detach.
Detach, yes.
How do you detach your emotions from someone coming after you emotionally, even if it was or wasn't your fault?
Well, there's a couple things that you've asked me now in the last couple minutes. No,
Okay,
it's all good because it's
exciting.
Because I can see like your mind is spinning here. You're absorbing and you're like, oh, this makes sense. If you're attacking my ego, immediately, as soon as I feel frustrated, angry, defensive, all three of those things are red flags to me that that's my ego.
Okay.
I immediately know. I go when I feel my bristling.
Like you wanna...
Yeah, when I feel that, I know I guarantee it's 99%. It's just my ego that I'm mad.
So what do you do in that moment?
I immediately go, oh, that's your ego, you idiot. Listen to what he's got to say. Let's win. Let's win. So how do I win? Do I win by attacking you?
No.
No, I don't win by attacking
If
you.
you're the only winner, you both lose.
Yes. So when you attack me,
both need to win,
and you say, whatever your attack is, you say, this is your fault. I go, you know what? Absolutely. This is my fault. Wow. Here's the mistake that I made. And I know it affected you in a negative way. Here's the things that I'm working on right now to remedy it. Wow. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna yell at me more? Are you gonna tell me it's my fault again? Like
a crazy person might say it a couple more times.
Yeah, and a crazy person, I'll be like, yeah, I know. I get this. This is another question I get when it's sort of like similar to what you said earlier, when you said, yeah, but what if it's not really your fault, right? The other one I get a lot is if you say, hey, listen, Lewis, this is my fault that this happened. You go, you're right, it is your fault. And then people say, what do I do then? What do I do then? If the person's blaming me, how do I take ownership then? And I'm like, that's the whole point. That's the whole point. Right. The whole point of taking ownership is when you look at me and you point your finger and you say this is all your fault. I say, yes, I know, that's what I just said. This is absolutely my fault. I'm the one that's in charge and these are the things that I'm gonna do to fix it. That's where we're gonna start.
Wow.
So when someone blames you, yes, take ownership. Now, if you have in the back of your mind, like you did earlier, like, hey, maybe this isn't really my fault.
Yeah.
Like if you have that in the back of your mind, you're actually wrong.
Wow.
You're actually wrong. You're in charge. And that applies to your life as well. That applies to your life as well. How you got to take ownership of what's going on in your life. When you're not where you want to be and you say it's because the boss doesn't like you or it's because the girl treated you this way or the guy did this, like all those things, you got to take ownership of them.
Yeah.
And if you're blaming all these other external things, you're not going to make any changes. And that's going to be a problem.
Before we continue this video, make sure to subscribe below and turn on the notification bell right now so you don't miss out on these great videos every single day.
I just want to dive into what this philosophy is and how you actually live.
Right. So my main goal is to live awesome. That's the tagline. That's the motto of our company. Primal Blueprint, live awesome. And what does that mean? It means extracting the greatest amount of pleasure, enjoyment, contentment, fulfillment that's possible out of every possible moment. Now, there are going to be bad times, of course, but to live in the moment, to appreciate the now, to appreciate the relationships, to have fun when you're working out, to enjoy every single bite of food you ever eat and not choke something down just because it's healthy. So it really revolves around orchestrating a life way of pleasure, of hedonistic experiences in the context of this modern world that we have here, understanding that we sit here with hunter-gatherer genes that have certain sort of proclivities and expectations of us that we can meet either through natural means or through artificial means. And sometimes there's not a right answer, but it's about choices. So how do I make choices that serve me in the short term, that give me pleasure, that don't harm me in the long term? So it's sort of an overview of what we're up against here. But as you drill down, as you boil it down and distill it down to what does it look like? It looks like, what are the types of foods that we choose to eat that turn on genes, that build muscle or burn fat? What are the types of, how much sun exposure do we get that allows us to make vitamin D and get tan, but not too much so we get burned? How much sleep do we get that? And by the way, sleep is a very pleasurable thing if you are willing to acknowledge that.
Yes.
How much sleep do we get in a way that reinvigorates us and allows us to be creative on a daily basis and not brag about how well we do on so little sleep? So all these, how do we use our brain on a regular basis beyond just the rote stuff of checking the PDAs? But how do we do puzzles? Do we play games? Do we are we creative? Do we play musical instruments? Do we learn a language? How do we use our brain? All these things make the totality of the human experience, and I love to look at all the ways in which we can choose these behaviors that manifest themselves as pleasurable, enjoyable, providing contentment and fulfillment, and build us toward a better human being.
When did you start to, take this on? Because you were was a triathlete?
Yeah, I was a marathoner in the 70s.
Wow.
And actually the late 60s and early 70s.
Wow.
And from there went to triathlon. I was always trying to improve myself, optimize performance,
yes.
Using the tools of the day, which were pretty rudimentary. It's like, all right, run a lot of miles and eat lots of carbohydrates, and you'll be where you need to be. Well,
right.
That's what we knew. That's all we knew, and it wasn't exactly appropriate. So over the years, I got injured. I got sick from the overtraining, from the diet, which was very highly inflammatory and caused
pastas and breads or what?
All that stuff that they said you had to eat.
I had so many pasta meals and pizza meals and lasagna meals the night before every game. And I remember just being so exhausted in every game. Yeah. High school, college, pro, it was just like exhaustion.
Right.
Yawning. I would yawn so much.
That's a classic symptom.
Why am I yawning?
Right. I'm supposed to be excited about the game and pumped up.
I wanted to take a nap.
Yeah, exactly. So we have these sort of old conventional wisdom technologies that we were using to improve performance, theoretically.
Yes.
And they weren't. So I basically ended my career prematurely. I was too injured to continue running. My health had suffered. I had arthritis and tendonitis and irritable bowel syndrome, and I got sick a lot, and I had heartburn and hemorrhoids, and I was like a real wreck. I mean, here's theoretically the picture of health because of the training I was doing, but I was falling apart on the inside. So I sort of rededicated my life to figuring out how I could be fit and strong and lean and happy and healthy at the same time without being overly, without too much struggle and sacrifice and suffering. Is there an easier way to be all those things I wanted to be that allowed me to have more pleasure in the moment and didn't sacrifice my long-term health? So that was the big shift in me, and it's been going on for 35 years, and it continues to go on. So as soon as I made that shift, I started doing the research. I wrote my first book in '82 on how to train for triathlons. And even then, I was calling upon evolution as the main basis for how we train. And I was looking at the previous few years of triathletes, because in '82, there hadn't even been a decade of triathlon training.
Wow.
But I'd already recognized that we were doing it wrong. We were training too hard. We were
too many miles,
too much redlining the heart and the body, and there was a better way and an easier way to do it.
Right.
So I started recognizing that back in '82, and then it's even up until 3 years ago when I started researching the Primal Endurance book. I started thinking, well, all of the science continues to show us that the old choice was probably a wrong choice. That reliance on carbohydrates and that intent of managing our glycogen stores in our muscles was kind of the wrong approach. And maybe we ought to come at it from the exact opposite end of the spectrum, which is how do we become really good at burning fat? And in so doing, spare glycogen. And in so doing, unburden ourselves of having to take in so much carbohydrate in the form of pasta and breads and cereals and rice and crackers and cookies and all the other stuff.
Sure. And you're 62, right?
Yeah.
Right? And you're like leaner than anyone I know. So what's the most effective way to burn fat and still be strong?
Yeah, of course. as we said initially in the Primal Blueprint, and I've said it decades before I wrote the Primal Blueprint, 80% of your body composition is determined by how you eat. So there's a certain way in which you can eat where you can literally reprogram your genes to derive most of your energy from your stored body fat.
Really?
Yes. So as opposed to waking up, being hungry, having breakfast, being hungry at the 10:30 break, being hungry for lunch, having a snack in the afternoon, having a dinner, and having a snack before you go to bed, which is this sort of standard American approach. Like even the old bodybuilders would say, don't go more than 3 hours without eating or you will cannibalize your muscle tissue.
Right.
That was all based on an assumption that we had to burn carbohydrate and had to access glucose and glycogen for the muscles to be able to continue to work. It never contemplated that we are obligate fat burners. We are born with this amazing ability to extract calories from stored body fat. And the reason that we don't as we go through life is we present you're 2 years old, you're eating cookies and crackers and mushed peas and all sorts of
everything,
all that stuff. And so your body learns to depend on glucose, on carbohydrates as a source of energy, and never really gets to the point where you force it to burn fat. Wow. So what we do is we shift the diet around. It's not painful. You get rid of the breads, the pastas, the cereals, the crackers, the cookies, the candies, the sweetened soft drinks. Well, it does sound kind of gross, doesn't it? But what you're left with is meat, fish, fowl, eggs, nuts, seeds, vegetables, a little bit of fruit, some starchy tubers like sweet potatoes, things like that. Those are great tasting foods if you eat them right, and
they're real food.
And they're real food, and you can use butter and lard, and you can eat bacon on this program. And what it does is it reduces the amount of simple sugars and carbohydrates you take in, and just sort of gently forces your body to upregulate all the enzyme systems that access stored body fat and burn it, and allow you to have more energy throughout the day without having to eat so often. So the first thing that happens is your appetite self-regulates. So now you get into this space where you become a good fat burner. You start to melt away.
You're not as hungry because
you're not as hungry because you're always carrying around a meal.
Yeah.
It's on your thighs, it's on your ass, it's on your belly, wherever it is. It's that's your body becomes so adept at accessing those stored calories. It says, I don't need to eat. I'm really not that hungry.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's so empowering for so many people.
But when I still love sugar, but I used to be really bad at sugar. I feel like I have much more under control. But I feel like when you're eating a lot of candy, sweets, and sugar, you're never satisfied. You just want to eat more and more and more.
But that's
until you're sick. And
no,
you're
exactly.
Like,
no, yeah,
I'm full because I'm sick now.
Yeah. I mean, stories of Lamar Odom eating 4 pounds of candy
before games
or whatever.
Crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, we're all hardwired.
But look where he's at now. It's like
we're all. But by the way, sugar is a very addictive substance.
It's so addictive.
So, we're all hardwired to seek out sweet things. That's part of that hunter-gatherer DNA that we all carry.
Really?
That hasn't changed in thousands of years.
So how do we shift our minds?
So the first way you do it is you go from the craving, which is what you're talking about. Like you crave sugar, so you eat sugar, and then that just promotes more craving, and it gets you into this sort of addictive cycle. You're actually producing sort of opiate-like substances that are occupying receptor sites that are giving you sort of a feel-good experience. So you got to kind of be willing to get rid of that. So you get rid of the candies, you get rid of the sweetened beverages, the soft drinks, the teas, and you get rid of the carbohydrates that not all carbs, but the breads that convert to glucose in the bloodstream so rapidly. So now you've lowered your glucose experience on a daily basis. So now the brain is starting to get, I don't need to really get that much glucose. The body is burning more fat. As a result of you being able to burn fat, you create these byproducts called ketones, which the brain loves to burn ketones and burns them preferentially. So you need less and less sugar to maintain clarity throughout the day. If you haven't become fat adapted and you're a sugar burner, which is what it's not a derogatory term, but we use the term to describe people who haven't become fat burners yet they're sugar burners. If you don't eat, it's true. If you don't eat for a couple of hours, your blood sugar dips because you haven't learned how to burn fat yet. You don't know how to access it. You can't take it out of storage and burn it. So now the blood sugar's low. The brain goes, I got to go get some more glucose. I got to get energy somewhere.
Some sugar or something.
Sugar or something.
Carbs.
So you have the bagel at 10:30 in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
Or you have
tastes amazing.
Well,
for an hour, and then it's
no, exactly. But then you're hungry again, and that's this vicious cycle. So if we can take the steps. We say it takes 21 days. That's why I have a book called The 21-Day Total Body Transformation. 21 days of this cutting these sugars and starchy, not starchy, but simple carbohydrates out of your diet, and just focusing on healthy fats and lean proteins and vegetables.
Right.
Your body gets the message and it says, I'm not going to be getting that much glucose. I'm going to learn how to burn fat, and I'm going to do it well. Damn it! And then it takes the fat out of your body fat stores. So over time, you lose 1 pound, 2 pounds a week, and you trend toward your ideal body composition.
Wow.
So all of this is a 10-minute long-winded answer to your question of how what does it take to burn fat. It doesn't take a lot of exercise. It mostly takes the dietary shift. Right. You got to do some exercise. You don't have to do anything, but you can choose to do some exercise.
It'll help accelerate
and it'll
it,
help accelerate it a little bit, but most of it happens as a result of the shifts you make in your diet. Absolutely.
It's all in the kitchen.
Yep.
So you can get abs in the kitchen and not do anything different working out.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the difference between, because it sounds like a little paleo-ish, what's the difference between primal paleo and like a bulletproof, which has kind of been picking up as well?
They're all sort of versions of a similar theme, which is to cut the sugars way down, cut the processed carbohydrates way down, get rid of the industrial seed oil, so that would be the soybean oil, the corn oil, the canola, which are causing inflammatory responses in a lot of people, and just kind of go to real food.
Yeah.
With the Primal Blueprint, we said at some point, dairy, if you like it, why not include it in your diet if you don't have an issue with it, right?
I love it.
So, but all these foods exist on a spectrum. So dairy, there's raw milk, which is good for you. There's A2 protein, which is a form of casein. We could have a whole discussion about the different types of cows and the different types of protein that they make. But on the far end of the spectrum, the good end, there's butter, there's cream, there's all these things. At the other end, at the bad end, there's 2% skim, homogenized, pasteurized, non-fat, whatever. Stay away from that stuff.
Yeah.
So all these foods sort of exist on a spectrum. So cheeses, for instance, part of the dairy family. I love cheese.
I love
cheese.
So,
we include it in our eating strategy because we say there's no real reason not to.
If it's the right cheese.
Paleo, yeah, exactly. Artisanal cheeses, and there's good and bad cheeses as well. But on the paleo program, or the paleo strategy, is pretty strict for a lot of people. So
No
they would
cheese,
say
right?
no dairy at all
Yeah.
of any kind. So no milk, no butter, no cream, no cheese. So that's there are little variations in this here.
But mostly whole foods.
Mostly whole foods is what we're all looking at. I mean, even if you look at a vegan experience these days or a vegetarian experience, it's really these dietary programs work largely as a result of what you eliminate, not what you're eating. Right. So if you eliminate the crap and you're left, even if you're only eating vegetables, as long as you're getting enough protein, you should be fine.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. What is LGN? And how does it motivate you?
Yeah. So LGN is Look Good Naked. And it's it's just a little mnemonic device we've used for the last 10 years. I think people have used it before, but we sort of made it a meme for a while. And it's just this idea that one of the things that we are seeking is we want to look good naked. We want to, and I think that happens for a lot of people. That's a subset of their greater goal, or it's a side effect of the original intent. The original intention for a lot of people who go to Primal Blueprint and to Mark's Daily Apple, my blog, is they're frustrated. They're sick. They can't get off the meds. They've had health issues, and they've not been able to resolve them through the traditional medical channels. So a lot of people come to me having had that experience in the medical community, not a good one. So the first thing that they recognize is their blood sugar normalizes, or their polycystic ovarian syndrome goes away, or their irritable bowel syndrome goes away, or their GERD, or whatever it is that they're dealing with goes away. And that's wonderful. And then they go, oh, by the way, I'm losing some weight too. That's awesome as well, and I'm starting to look good naked.
Right.
So it becomes a nice side effect.
Yeah. Gotcha. So what's a typical eating day look like for you? Like, what are you putting in your system?
Yeah.
And
So
what time do you put it in?
Yeah. So I wake up in the morning and I have a cup of coffee around 6:30 in the morning.
Wow.
I like coffee. I'm a big fan of coffee. I don't eat until 12:30 or 1.
Okay.
So I use what we call a compressed eating window. Now I will wake up and I have plenty of energy because I'm so good at burning fat. I've trained my body to do that.
So I don't have the energy. You don't.
I have the energy. I'm not in a slump waking up from having not eaten for the 12 hours that I was sleeping, it doesn't matter. I'm so good at accessing the stored body fat. I got plenty of energy. In fact, I'll go to the gym at 9:30 or 10 o'clock, and I'll do my workout fasted. Sometimes it'll be a heavy leg day. Sometimes it'll be intervals of some kind. Again, I don't. And
you feel fine.
Feel fine.
Right.
And then when I get home, I won't eat. If I get home at like 11, I still won't eat for an hour and a half. Partly because I'm not hungry. And partly because I got stuff to do. Right. So,
exactly.
But I'm not compelled to go, oh, my God, I just finished my workout. I must eat a post-workout shake or something.
Yeah, there's so many people that say that, have a protein shake within the first 30 minutes of waking up to start your metabolism, drink a shake right after a workout. Why do they say that, and why do you think you don't need to?
I think you don't need to, because if you become good at burning fat, a couple things happen. First of all, you have the energy to get through the day. Second of all, if you're good at burning fat and you're not hungry, I say if you're not hungry, why are you eating? If you're not hungry, don't eat, because that's kind of key. When you become good at burning fat, you don't enter that cannibalistic zone that the bodybuilders enter when they're dependent on carbs a lot, which is you start to tear up your muscle tissue. Because when you're a sugar burner and you run out of sugar, or you're depending on carbohydrate. By the way, I use glycogen, glucose, carbohydrate, and sugar sort of interchangeably.
Okay.
But when you're a sugar burner and you haven't eaten for a while, you've depleted the glycogen in your liver and your muscles, because your body's expecting you to have sugar all this time, and that's where you store it, but you don't store very much of it. So when you run out of it, the brain...
You need to fill it up.
The brain goes, hey, something's off here. We got to eat. And if we don't eat, then here's what we're going to do. We're going to signal the adrenals to create cortisol, which is going to go tear down muscle tissue so that the amino acids can be sent to the liver to be converted into glucose so I can fuel the brain. So it's like you're tearing down the muscle you just spent all the time trying to build because of your dependence on glucose. All that goes away when you become a fat burner. When you become good at burning fat, now when you don't eat, your body knows how to access the stored body fat, so your energy levels don't dip, your blood sugar doesn't dip, and so you don't cut into muscle tissue.
Gotcha. So you can train really hard to try to build muscle, and you're still saying you don't need this like post-recovery shake right afterwards if you learn how to eat the right way.
Exactly. Now, if you're the old paradigm and you are the carbohydrate-dependent athlete, then you probably do want to eat a post-workout meal, because you probably will cannibalize some of the muscle tissue because you're working on an entirely different operating system.
Interesting. Man. And so that 21-day transformation is how you get off of that cycle and get into the fat-burning cycle, essentially?
Exactly.
Okay, cool. We'll have that linked up here as well.
And also the Primal Endurance, the book.
Has a lot of it in there.
This has it all in here, but this is really specific to people who want to race 10Ks, 5Ks, marathons, triathlons, Spartan races, all that stuff.
Gotcha. Yes. Have you done a Spartan race yourself?
I haven't.
I did one, a short one, like a 5-miler. It's pretty intense.
Yeah, it's intense.
It's fun though.
I wish it had been around when I was in my prime. Because
you would have been a machine.
Because I was a good marathoner, but I got I had my DNA fitness thing done a few years ago, and I was like 57% endurance and 43% strength. What that means is it made me a pretty good endurance athlete, but I was never going to be the best in the world, because you'd have to be 80% or 85%, right? But it also told me that I had the strength, which is sort of, in retrospect, that's why I realized I used to lift weights. Even when I was a marathoner, I lifted weights in the gym.
Yeah.
So I maintained my strength.
Wow.
And I was a gymnast before I was ever an endurance athlete.
Really?
So you look at the Spartan races and you go, well, that's, it's got some gymnastics, some parkour type movements,
rope climbing,
some heavy lifting, all that stuff combined with the endurance. That would have been
your thing.
My thing.
Wow.
But right now it's like I'm too guarding of my current fitness level and health. I don't want to get injured, and
yeah, of course.
So like the big thing for me is my ultimate frisbee game once a week.
You're an ultimate frisbee?
Oh my God.
I love ultimate frisbee.
You got to come out to Malibu, man.
College champion with my team in college.
Get out of here. Which
it's been a small D3 school. Wasn't like
whatever,
big
man.
Time, but
you know what? So
I can run and jump and
we have a game in Malibu.
Dude, I'm in.
Every Sunday at 9:30.
I would love
crazy.
to come. It's been years, but I'd love to come.
No. It's the most fun.
Can you wear cleats?
You can wear cleats. I wear my Vibrams, but guys wear cleats.
Wow.
No, it's anyway. So
I would love to come.
You know what a good workout it is then.
That's one of the hardest workouts. An hour of ultimate, and I'm exhausted.
We play 2 hours, by the way.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. I would be like, sub me in. 15 minutes. I'd have to get back into shape for it. Wow, that's cool.
In Malibu, huh?
In Malibu, yeah.
9:30 a.m.
Yep.
I'll be there. When it's
And there's
time.
guys from West Hollywood that come out there too.
I will come out for sure. Was it like 30 guys go out there?
We get last week we had 6-on-6. That's the most fun.
Oh, wow.
In the summer we'll have 10-on-10 sometimes. It's a little bit crazy, but yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, so you wait until about, you have coffee in the morning, then you wait till about noon to 1.
Oh yeah, we haven't even gotten to any food yet.
And then what is that meal?
Yeah, so
and
that
then
meal's
what do you eat?
it might be what I call a big ass salad. It's a
Okay.
big salad with lots of vegetables in it and some form of protein, with lots of salad dressing. If you make
But you have your
dressing-
own salad dressing.
Now I have my own salad dressing because I couldn't find any that I could put a lot on and feel like this is
that isn't filled with sugar.
yeah,
or
exactly.
whatever.
or unhealthy fats or unhealthy oils like the soybean oil that I was talking about or the canola. It's like no canola. This is our salad dressings are made with avocado oil, which is the healthiest of all the oils.
Wow.
So I have a big salad with chicken from left over from the previous night or a piece of fish or something on it.
Nice. Okay. And then
I go till the middle of the afternoon, maybe late afternoon. I might have a handful of macadamia nuts. We do make a we make a protein bar now.
Yes,
all
I
my
saw
products
this.
I make for myself. By the way, just so you know,
Right.
I make stuff that I wish existed. That so
this one, the dark chocolate
the
almond
dark
bar?
chocolate almond
It looks
bar.
amazing.
It is amazing, and it's got there's 15 grams of protein, but mostly it's 9 grams of collagen. So it's got more collagen than a cup of bone broth. So, I love bone broth,
Wow.
but as a quick
Yeah.
when I'm driving my car, with a
Let me pull out a bottle of bone broth.
yeah. So the bars are there because I'm really into the repair. So one of the issues I have as a 62-year-old guy trying to keep up with 20-somethings on a sprint to the end zone to defend a long pass is my Achilles. So the collagen really works well.
Really?
Absolutely keeps me. I know that I can tell the difference between when I've been eating a lot of collagen and when I haven't. In
just your Achilles.
In my Achilles, yeah.
What happens? Just tighter when you're not?
Yeah,
or?
they feel like they're going to snap.
Really?
They'll feel sore enough that I'll choose not. I'll back way off.
Interesting.
For weeks at a time. So anyway, that's I might have a dark chocolate almond bar in the afternoon.
I'm gonna have to get all this stuff.
Yeah,
I have to try it all out. Okay.
And then in the evening, I have a piece of steak. I've got this great Wagyu short rib that I get. It's my favorite cut of meat anywhere in the world. And I'll have that with a whole ton of steamed vegetables or lightly grilled vegetables with some butter on it. And once in a while, I'll have a glass of wine. And that's it.
That's the whole day.
Yeah.
You don't need much more than that.
No, so here's the thing. You may have gleaned from that it's not a lot of food.
Right.
And one of the things that you realize when you become good at burning fat,
you don't need a lot of food.
You don't need a lot of food. So a few years ago, I had this thought experiment. I thought, well, I used to my whole life see what I could get away with, see how much food I could eat and not feel like I was going to puke or not feel like I was going to gain weight. Right? It's how much food can I eat and not gain weight. I think a lot of people live their lives that way. They sort of finish what's on their plate. They basically, there are a lot of people who run or work out just so they can eat more. Like, why do you run so much, Lewis? Well, I run because I love to eat. I love to eat. Well, dude, I love to eat too.
Yeah.
But I don't want to beat myself up. So I can eat more. So that was the thought experiment. And then if you reverse it, you go, well, if that's the case, what's the least amount of food I can eat and maintain my body mass, maintain my energy, not get sick, and most importantly, not be hungry. And it turns out it's about 30% fewer calories than I used to eat.
What do you want to happen? Well, you want to get to know this person better, spend more time with them, invest at an organic pace based on the level of investment that's going on, right? Don't invest in someone based on how much you like them. Invest based on how much they invest in you.